Now, the third type of parenting that we're going to discuss today is authoritative parenting. And authoritative parenting, they're consistent in setting boundaries, they listen to their children, the rules are clear, and they consider their child's feeling. As opposed to the authoritarian, we don't care about our kid feelings because you stupid. Didn't I tell you to put the chicken and thaw it out before I get home from work? And you didn't because you stupid, that's why. Now nobody's gonna eat. Nobody's gonna eat dinner because you were stupid and you were just so lazy and slow. Not cool. You have to consider your child's feeling. You have to consider the style. So the authoritative parenting style is like if the authoritarian father and a permissive mother had a love child. This is what the authoritative parent would be. So with authoritarian parent, the parents are reasonable and nurturing. They set high and clear expectations. The children tend to be self-disciplined and think for themselves. And this style is thought to be more beneficial to children. Disciplinary rules are clear, and the reason behind them are explained. So if you've ever been yourself in a situation where you're just being disciplined or told that something is wrong and you don't know the reason why, as an adult, if think of it as one of your friendship, when one of your friends just stopped talking to you and you don't even know, why is this person not talking to me anymore? We don't communicate like we used to. Why? As an adult, you want to know why something is being done. Oh, she didn't invite me to her wedding. Why not? What did I do? So that's the punishment we get as adults, right? When it comes to friendship. So imagine being a child and your parents just punishing you or telling you time out or taking away your phone and not telling you why. They know why. So let's have a conversation about it. Let me tell you this, you're being disciplined because this is what happened. You were supposed to do your homework. Then it was bedtime. And then, you were supposed to brush your teeth. You were supposed to go to bed, do all your homework, and you didn't do it. So guess what? I'm going to take away your cell phone. No more cell phone at night because it seems as if you're on your cell phone and you forget what you're supposed to do. Take it away. I guarantee you're going to get less whining because you explain it to them. You said it in a lower tone as opposed to, didn't I tell you to go to bed, brush your teeth, do all that you were supposed to do before you took that cell phone, before you were on that cell phone and before you go to bed? What you're going to get is a lot of whining, a lot of back talking, and it's a lot of wailing in the next room for hours or minutes, depending on how your child is. But you have to explain it, communicate, frequent, appropriate communication. It's going to be appropriate so you're probably thinking, oh, this style only works with older children. No, you start from your children are toddlers. You can speak to your toddler. If you have a 2-year-old or a 3-year-old, you're going to use the words that they understand. No, mommy said no, not nice. That's how we start first, right? Not nice, don't hit your sister. You go in different, small words, short sentences, something that they'll understand, instead of the toddler hitting their sister and then you're saying, time out, go to time out. Okay, go to time out because I hit my sister, but what's wrong with that? I just hit her. Explain to them, not nice, in their language. Because they understand more than you think they do, especially if you try and explain it on their level. In this parenting style, you start from they're young, you start with your toning, your empathy, your love, your communication, and it will just grow as the child grows. So authoritative parents are nurturing. Their expectation and goals are high, but they're clearly stated. And children may have an input on the goals. So if you know that little Johnny likes basketball, but you prefer football, you come to a compromise. You say, okay, you tell them, this is why I want you to play football, or this is why I don't want you to play football, and you tell them why. Or maybe we can do half and half, half in season, but you have a conversation with that child. Because, it's their life. You're the parent, you're the authority figure, but you have a conversation. If you have to make the final say, that's fine. But at least, which in most cases, as a parent, you are, but at least you have that conversation with that child instead of just bulking out whatever it is that you don't want the child without giving a reason. Because a lot of times we don't give our children as much credit as they deserve because we're thinking, you're a child. I don't need to explain myself to you. What am I explaining myself to you for? You're a child. I said it. Sit down. No, you need to explain to your child, because when you don't communicate well with your child, you're raising children who are going to become adults who don't know how to communicate. And you have to think about that. You're an adult, right? You're an adult, but before you were an adult, you were a child. Before you were an adult, you were a child. Before you were an adult, you were taught certain things by your parents. Before you were an adult, there are certain things your parents did that you didn't like. And so you have to think about your child now and how you're raising your child. you are going to be responsible for that man who balks at his children. You're going to be responsible for that woman who doesn't know how to nurture a child. So you have to think of it of that terms. Whatever you didn't like as a child growing up that your parents did to you, don't do it to your children. Because the same way how you feel now, it's the same way they're going to feel when they're older. And as I mentioned earlier in the training, you don't want a child who resents you. You don't want a child who resents their childhood, because you have so many adults walking around who resents the way their parents discipline them. I know people to this day that has scars that they got from their parents, right? Because their parents was punishing them, you know, so you don't want that type, you don't want that for your children. So when you're an authoritative parent, your child is happy. They're mostly self-reliant. They're mostly self-controlled. They're content. They're friendly. They're cooperative. In most cases, they're high achievers because they know they have a parent who is supportive and a parent who's there for them and will listen to them. They're less likely to be disruptive or delinquent in school because they know I can talk to my mom. If I talk to my mom and tell her what's going on, you know what I mean? I can open up. I have an adult that I trust and I know my mom will talk to me and she won't just punish me. They also experience the satisfaction that comes from meeting responsibility, achieving success. They're reasonable with their expectations. They tend to have high self-esteem, have good skills, and usually perform well academically. How do you get from authoritarian to authoritative? You get from authoritarian, and that's a question in the inbox. You get from authoritarian to authoritative by just changing your techniques. And you don't have to, you're not going to switch from authoritarian to authoritative overnight, especially if that's the only thing you've known and that's the only way you've known, that's how you were taught. What you do is you incorporate certain techniques. Whenever you find yourself being heated, the first thing you can do is whenever you're going to punish in anger, you step away. So that's the first step. So if your child does something and you're so angry about it and you're so frustrated and you're going to punish them right away, don't do it. Don't do it when you're frustrated. You step away, you think about it for a little bit. Take a deep breath, because it's going to be hard. I'm telling you, you're going to think to yourself, oh, look at me now. I'm about to go explain myself to this little brat. Don't think of it as that. Just say, look at me now, doing a better parenting path for my child and for myself. When you're calm, when you're done, you go to your child and you say to them, hey, this is why you're being punished. This is what happened. Because depending on the style that you already incorporated, this is going to be a shock to your child. So they might just comply with this, but the fact that like, whoa. Because I know with my daughter, when, you know, because first I was so used to screaming and telling her stop this and don't do that. So when I switched to a lower tone and a lower voice and using different words and languages, to her it was like, okay, what's going on? But she complied. And over time, our parenting styles and our relationship as a child and a parent got better. So it's going to be learning for you, and it's going to be step by step learning for you and the child, but it can be done. You just step back before you lay out any punishment and communicate. A lot of us don't like to communicate with our children because we don't think we're not obligated to. Why should I be communicating with you? Why should I tell you why I'm doing what I'm doing? I'm your parent. No, for a peaceful life, because those little cute toddlers are going to grow up to be middle schoolers, are going to grow up to be high schoolers, and are going to grow up to be adults that resent you or adults that get in trouble or do not know how to communicate with their own children. So you want to break the cycle as soon as possible. So the different parenting styles that we discussed were authoritarian parent, that's a strict and demanding parent, and they fail to listen and respect their child's opinion. Then you go with the permissive parenting, where it's hands-off parenting, where the child can use them as a resource if they choose, but there's really no guidelines. You know, there's really no guidelines, no boundaries. Then you have the authoritative parenting, where it's interactive parenting. They set clear expectations and they're supportive of failures. So if your child does something and they failed at it or they didn't do it well, we don't tell them they're stupid. We don't tell them they're worthless. We don't tell them they're no good. We don't tell them that they're just like their daddy. We don't tell them they're just like their mom. We talk about it. We talk about them making better choices. You know, when I spoke about earlier about being empathetic and logic. So you use empathy and logic. So try to understand where the child is coming from, and then you use logic. Logic is the reason that you use to explain to the child why what they did was not the way to go. So usually I left this in because usually I would do like a role play when you would have like a, you know, people come up and act one way, and then you incorporate whatever you've learned. But just think about these, but go ahead and just think about these simple scenarios where, you know, somebody comes in the house when you call her for dinner. How would you approach it now that you know the different type of parenting styles? Or your teenager keeps the car out past curfew. Instead of just screaming and shouting and grounding and taking away the car keys, which some of those things you can do, but instead of just saying, you know what, you're not getting the car anymore, give me the car keys, get out of here. You're going to explain to them why you're taking away the car key, which they already know. And they're going to put up different, you're going to also give them different times, different guidelines, maybe changing the curfew or something like that. What if you have two types of parents in the house? Well, if you have two types of parents in the house, you're now going to have to sit down and have a conversation with the other partner to see how you're going to come up with discipline. Because having two types of parents in the house with two different type of parenting style, what that's going to cause in the house is divide, because they're always going to either run to one parent or the other. So the parent who's more authoritative, the children are going to gravitate towards that parent more, and then resent the parent that's authoritarian. Or if it's a authoritarian and a permissive parent, they're going to gravitate towards a permissive parent more, because that parent is going to let them do whatever they want to do. So you as an authoritarian parent has to be strong enough. But so not to divide your house, you sit down and you have a conversation with your partner and you say, listen, I understand that you're more permissive than I am, and I'm more of the disciplinarian and the authoritarian. So before you tell this child that it's okay for them to jump off a wall without any padding on the floor, let's talk about this first. I don't want him to do this because this is what will happen, and my insurance won't cover him, and you don't have any insurance. So what do you think about that? Then that parent is going to say, you know what, you're right. Or they should say, because you should have communication. Because if communication is not okay in the house between the parents, you're not going to be able to communicate with the child. Because if you can't communicate with each other as an adult, how are you going to communicate with that child? So it first starts with parents deciding how you're going to do your parenting style. It's okay if both parents have different parenting styles, but when it comes to disciplining or making big decisions, you have to have that conversation. And a lot of us grew up in households where it was like that, where in some cases, mom was more permissive than dad. Dad was an authoritarian, mom was a permissive one, but you knew that whatever dad says goes, and you can always run to mom for nurture and love and support. So it's a balance. But when it comes to big decisions, when it comes to things that will affect the child future-wise, that's a conversation you should be having with the other parent, the partner. And if you two can't communicate, you're not going to be able to communicate with the child. So work on the communications first and go forward. Because each style is going to complement. You're going to complement each other, right? Your styles are supposed to complement each other. And as a parent, either way, you both should be making certain decisions. Because I know if a child comes and say they want to do football, and one parent says yes and the other says no, you have a conversation to say, hey, why don't you want to do football? Or hey, why do you want to make football? And then the decision is made. Because if you say yes, I say no, and the child still goes, it's going to cause contention between parents. And that you don't want that. So you communicate with your partner before you even make those big decisions. So we're going to talk about applying consequences. So you have to, when you're going to discipline your child, you have to make sure that you apply consequences that have meaning. It has meaning. Make consequences black and white. Make it clear. Tell the child why they're being punished and what for. Discipline. Have a problem-solving conversation. So instead of just disciplining the child for something that they did wrong or something that you think was misbehaving, tell them why it was wrong. Let's talk about it. Okay, instead of you taking the money from your sister's room to buy a video game, you let them know, listen, that was stealing. If you're a Christian or you're religious, you quote the Bible and you say, listen, thou shalt not steal. That's what the Bible said, or if you're not and you're just a parent where you just know stealing is wrong. Stealing is wrong. That's not something that you should do, because if you take something that's not yours, you could get in trouble. When you're an adult, you don't do that. The next time you want something, you ask. Or you do your chores. We set up a payment system where for your chores, you get an allowance. So you have a problem-solving conversation based on whatever the misbehavior was. Don't get into an argument over consequences. Don't sit there and argue with your child over the consequences that you gave them. You don't want to argue with them. So if you tell them this is the consequences, what's going to happen, and they're telling you, but mom, that's so unfair. I can't believe you're doing it. You tell them, you might think it's unfair, but also what you did was not fair to me, or what you did was not fair to your sister, or I want you to do better in school. I want you to do better grades. So that's why you're getting, that's why we're having this consequence. But you're not going to go over a screaming match. I don't care if you think it is fair. I said what I said, and that's what you're going to do. You don't want to do that. You want to explain to them, but you're not going to argue with them. How will you know if the consequence is working? The behavior will stop. And it's not going to stop overnight. It's going to stop. It's going to be in time. So any of these parenting techniques that you're doing is just like if you the regular discipline with where you're doing physical punishment. When you're doing physical punishment, that doesn't stop their misbehavior. In some cases, the misbehavior gets worse because, as I mentioned earlier, they expect a butt whooping. So I'm going to do this because all I'm going to do is I'm going to get a butt whooping. It's going to cool off anyways. So even if you're using physical punishment right now, it's not working for you. So how are you going to know if the other consequence is working? Over time. Over time, it will. And some things should never be used as a consequence. And I put this in here because I wanted to talk about ignoring. One of the things are ignoring. You have some parents who will ignore their child. They will ignore. I already said what I said. I'm not going to talk about it anymore. And your child will be like, but mom, but dad. And you're just like ignoring that child. Or the child did something that you thought was so egregious and made you embarrassed in front of the school and in front of your parents and your peers that you don't even talk to that child. Especially if it's an older child, like a teenager. You in the house and you're not talking to your own child. What kind of example are you setting as a parent? If you're a parent and you're not talking to your own child because you're mad at that child, what examples are you setting? So that's a non-negotiable. And let me tell you something. If you're not talking to that, you have to think about it in this sense too. If you're not talking to your child because the child did something wrong, that child is going to find somebody else to talk to. And then that's a different training and a different kind of world. Okay. Can of worms. I said world. So the next thing is, so you don't ignore your child. That's not cool. Another thing that I don't like is when you take a no dinner time. Your child does something and you say, okay, you know what? You're going to bed hungry. No. You don't ignore your child as a consequence, and you don't withhold food as a consequence. I mean, and those are just my non-negotiables. Those are the things that I don't believe in. I don't like doing. Like I've seen, that people do that. Like, okay, no dinner for you. Oh, you don't want to eat your dinner? No dinner for you. Or you don't want to eat your food, or you did this, or you were late, so no dinner for you. That's not cool. You don't withhold basic needs. You don't withhold from your child. You don't withhold food from your child, because you have some, listen, you think you're tough. You have some 6-year-old, 5-year-olds who will sit at that table in front of that food forever and not eat it. And they will sit there and you'll tell them, if you don't get up until you eat that food. Okay. I mean, that's not going to work. So sometimes you just have to work with the child and say, okay, I understand you're not going to eat this. Eat this, and then tomorrow, I promise, we'll make something that you like and we'll make it together. Or, eat your food now and I'll give you an hour of TV time. Instead of saying, eat your food. If you don't eat, you don't get up. Because that child will sit there, and then guess what? When 8 o'clock comes, bedtime or whatever time is bedtime, you say, get up and go to bed. That child goes to school hungry. And that child going to tell the teacher, my mom didn't give me any food last night. Then you hear DCF knocking on your door. Hey, we hear that, because you know how kids are. So when it comes to basic necessities as parents, we should always be providing security. We should also always be providing stability. We should always be providing food. So those are, when it comes to punishment, don't punish a child with clothing. Don't punish a child with food. I mean, clothing in that, you can probably say, I'm not going to buy the designer pair of shoes you want if you don't behave. That's okay. But I mean, like, you're going to wear that tattered shirt because you ripped the other shirt and you're going to go, no, you're shaming your child. Because I know parents who will do that, the child ripped the brand new shirt, so you're going to wear it just like that. And you have your child walking around with a big old hole in the shirt because you're trying to teach him a lesson. The only thing you're doing is shaming your child. So you don't want to do things, some things should just not be non-negotiable when it comes to disciplining your child. If set rules are broken, you should act quickly, stay calm, and follow up with fair, age-appropriate consequences, such as taking away a plaything for a short period. So if it's a toddler or a younger child, you take away the favorite toy, you take away something they like. If it's a teenager, you take away the cell phone. Praise behaviors you like. When you see your child doing something good, tell them. Don't always just jump on them when they do something bad. When they do something good, tell them about it. And always catch them doing something good. If they're doing something good, hey, I saw what you did there. You shared with your sister. That's a good job. Praise them, not just the bad behavior. Be consistent. Be firm. Boundaries are meant to be expand. As your child grows, the boundaries will grow also. If you set limits with your child in a consistent, positive way, eventually your child will internalize your expectations. And these guidelines will help him to get along successfully in life. I mentioned earlier about spending time. The best thing you can do to improve your child's behavior is spending time with them individually every day. And as I mentioned, 10 to 15 minutes. I mean, longer is great, but even if you can't do it because, you know, everybody's so busy, 10 to 15 minutes a day is great, is good. Give the child positive attention and emotional connection. They need it. Children need positive attention and they need that emotional connection. When they do not have positive attention, they will seek out attention in negative ways, and consequences and other discipline methods will not work. I know a lot of you have probably heard, or when your child does something, you say, she just seeking attention. He just want attention. Yeah, the child needs attention. So what do? You don't just tell them, sit down. You're just seeking attention. No, you give them the attention. Oh, okay, Johnny, what is it now? Okay, all right, yeah. Sometimes they just want you to see them. So, you know, they get, or I have a conversation. Why did you do that? Was it because they're really just seeking attention sometimes, but just give it to them. Mentioned before, aim for 10 to 15 minutes a day and for a child, and you see measurable improvement almost immediately. Positive parenting techniques. Set boundaries. You also want to build connection so you can gain cooperation. Be firm but loving. You want to be firm, set boundaries, but you want to be loving with it. You also want to avoid shaming. And that's a big thing. I remember once when I was younger, I used to work to take pictures at Sears when they had the keychains that were popular, you know, back in the early 2000s. And this one little boy, he couldn't have been like 3 years old, probably 3 years old. And he would not take the picture. He would cry. And mom was like, you such a bitch. Stand up and take the picture. Stand up and, oh, look at him. You just a little silly. And she was just going to town. I was in my 20s at that time. And I knew that was wrong. I was like, really? And that little boy he would not take that picture. And this was in front of other people that she was just screaming at him and calling him names. And this was a toddler. Avoid shaming. That little boy, I'm sure now grew up, if she didn't change her ways to be talking to his children the same way or talking to his partner the same way. Avoid shaming. Always incorporate a teachable moment. Exercise empathy. Be respectful. Be respectful to your children. Use positive reinforcement. Use logical consequences. And it's okay to apologize to your child. If you find out that you just do something wrong, sometimes we punish them without even finding out the facts. Then we find out that we were wrong. Nothing wrong with going, you know what? I was wrong. I'm sorry. You know, my bad, dog. I'm so sorry for what happened. It's okay to apologize to your child. Ways to boost your child's self-esteem. Provide more successes and failures for your child. Be a good role model. Give lots of encouragement. Take their ideas, their emotions, and their feelings seriously. Give them freedom to fail, but with acceptance. Now, I'm not telling you to let your child just keep on failing, but if they do, talk about it. Find out why they fail. Let them know it's okay to fail. The big part is getting up and trying again and doing better. Give your children responsibility. Don't be that permissive parent. Oh, she doesn't need to clean her room. I'll clean it for her. No, you want to give your child responsibility. You want to give them unconditional love. Do not set your standards that are unreasonable high. You want to allow independence, allow exploration, and encourage questions. Don't be oh, you talk too much. Oh, you always talking. Why are you always asking questions? Answer the question. Maybe if you answer the question, the child would stop asking. Avoid ridicule. Don't ridicule your child. Eliminate the negative. Now, what you have to remember is that children are not all the same. All your children are not all the same. If you have more than—
I'm sorry. Can you go back to that slide for me, please? I'm actually taking notes.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Thanks.
This one?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, you could go ahead now. I screenshot it. Thank you.
You're welcome. So you also want to remember, children are not all the same. They're individuals with their own personalities, even children the same age develop at different rates. So you may have a 2-year-old and I may have a 2-year-old, but they're going to be different. They're hitting the milestones differently. Their understanding is different. You know, so the discipline for both of them will not the same. One child will be okay with timeout, and one child will probably be better with taking away a toy. It's important to not expect more or less of your child than you're capable of providing. Parents will expect their child to do college math, and they don't know how to do it. And that's just an example. So you're setting that expectation, but you don't even know how to guide them or how to assist them with it. So when you're setting expectations, make sure you're capable of providing that support they'll need. Nobody's perfect. We're all trying here. No handbook. Nobody told us how to be parent. We just want to know that we're providing a nurturing environment because we want nurturing, loving, respectable adults. If you expect your child to always be polite, happy, or cooperative, you're going to be disappointed because your child is not always going to be happy, especially when they get to that teenage stage and they're just moody all the time for no reason. You know, but it's our job as parents to make sure they feel that they're supported and they're lovable through it all. We've been there. Always go back to how you felt as a child when your parents disciplined you certain ways. If you felt shame, if you felt hurt, if you felt disappointed, if you felt as if I just want to run away from home, don't do it to your child because that's the same way your child is going to feel. Children make mistakes, but most mistakes are not intentional. It's okay to let your children try and fail. And I know we've been talking about, we're almost wrapping up, and I know we've been talking about children, but let's talk about the parents for a little bit. We have to give ourselves some grace as parents. We're learning. So it's important. I'm a big advocate for self-care. We need to take care of ourselves because if we don't take care of ourselves as parents, we're not going to be able to take care of our children with empathy, with patience, with lots of love, because we have to show ourselves the same grace. We have to show ourselves the same love, and we have to be empathetic to our own needs. So we have to make sure that parenting is much easier when we also take care of ourselves. Raising children is a time-consuming job. When parents have other jobs, when you have other children, when you have other demands, it increases your time for your own self-care. If you have families and you have friends who can offer support, reach out to them. If there's a support group that you can reach out to, you do that. People in your area, your friends, your family, you talk about it. It's okay. Parents should take time to do things they enjoy. Always carve out a little time for you. Just like how you give your child that 10 to 15 minutes of attention a day or so, make sure you take out a little time for you. So even if it's COVID, you really can't go anywhere. So, well, they're open up now, but you know, if you can't go out or you're not a person that likes to go out or go to the club, church might be your saving grace where that's your me time. Or after you put the children to bed, you might just sit down and have a glass of wine or watch your favorite show, but you have to do things that you enjoy. You might run a bath or do something. So you have to take care of yourself as parents. When you take care of yourself as parents, you're going to feel more confident in your own parenting ability. You're going to be more patient. You're going to be more calm. Because when you're stressed and frustrated, you're not giving the child that love and that understanding that they need. So take care of yourself. Okay. And that's it for me. Any questions? No? Okay.
No, I asked something in the box.
In the
I
chat.
can't see the box. I need to.
Yeah, there's some questions and comments in the box.
Let me look at this one. Which one?
I told.
The one about I told my 9th grader if he gets a C on his report card? That one?
Yes.
I told my 9th grader if he gets a C on his report card, he will not play varsity ball. He got 1 C biology, 4 A, and 2 B. What do I now? I mean, that's good. He just got 1 C. He got 1 C, 4 A's, and 2 B's. What do I do now? One C in biology and 4 A and 2 B. What do I do now? You sit down and you talk to him and you tell him how proud you are of him and that you're glad that he got 4 A's and 2 B's, and now that he got that 1 C, he's gonna need to bring it up. But because he do so well, he can play varsity ball. Don't you think? Don't you think that's a good idea? Do you think that the 4 A's and the 2 B's are great? What was his grades like before? Laverne? Okay. His grades before were good. Yes, if his grades before were good, is a C something that he's always failing? Is it a subject that he struggles in? Or this is just something, this is a new subject that he struggles in. But you have to sit down and have a conversation with him. I think and this is just me personally looking at this, I think it's a good report card. It's a new subject. So maybe he needs to do better. You just sit down and you talk to him and you let him know that you're proud of his 4 A's, you're proud of his B's, because that's what we talked about, setting high expectations for our children. And that's expectation that was good. It was a good expectation that you set, but now that he's done so well in it and it's a new subject that he got a C in, now you want him to work on bringing that C up, but don't deprive him from playing the varsity football, especially if he's done so well. You have a conversation with him.
I have a question.
Okay.
I'm not sure if it's too off topic or if it's in the same kind of, but I have a 3-year-old who's a picky eater. Do you have anything on better eating habits?
What is your 3-year-old like?
Very limited. Anything sugary, anything sweet, occasionally chicken nuggets, macaroni, corn dogs. It's very limited.
Sounds like my 3-year-old. She'll eat macaroni and cheese and chicken nuggets all day.
Just take what they will give me, or what?
Yeah, take what she'll eat because you want her to eat, but also you can just make it fun. I mean, Pinterest has a lot of, I'm a Pinterest person. Pinterest has a lot of boards and ideas to make meals fun. And I think incorporating her into meal making would probably work great. So you make it fun, you incorporate it, tell her it's good for her, and you make, dinner time fun for her, make it creative. And but also on that plate, you also put a little bit of something that she likes. So the only person, you're gonna incorporate a new meat. You have her prepare that new meat, tell her how great it is, talk about it a little bit, have her taste it a little bit. But some kids are just picky eater. Some kids just
My second born, he is not as picky as my firstborn. But the thing, my second question kind of possibly, I don't know if you can help me with this one. My firstborn stopped breastfeeding at about 13 months, which was perfect timing. The second one, I mean, stopping them from breastfeeding is hard for me too because it's a connection thing. But I feel like it's time, but it's harder because of the fact that I've let him go for so long. I feel like he's now at like 16 months, but he's so opinionated about more things that I feel like it's harder to break it because I have an emotional attachment to it, and I feel bad because I see that he wants it and he'll actually demand for it more.
Okay, but I think you answered your own question there when you said you have an emotional attachment to it. So you sit and assess and see who really has the issue. So that you wean him away and wean him off, he'll be great. He'll be fine. I mean, so it seems like you need to work on releasing yourself from it. Because you said it yourself, you have an emotional attachment. That was your answer right there. It's you.
Okay.
I have a question.
No, you don't.
I wanted to know, at what age do you start disciplining your child? And how do you explain or break down the word consequences to them?
You don't, at what age is that child? Because at a 2-year-old, you're not going to tell that 2-year-old about consequences. You're going to use a word that is a 2-year-old type vocabulary. So you start disciplining your child as soon as they understand the word no, right? So that will probably be about age 2, toddler, or maybe 1, depending on how your child is. As soon as they know, they start understanding no. So as soon as you say something, they're going to touch something or they're going to do something, you say no. And you can always go to the not nice. That's not nice, no, that's not nice. And you start from your 2. And as the older they get, then your language change, your disciplinary method changes, but you start as soon as they can understand. because you want them to, because if you don't start disciplining your child, you're going to have a 3-year-old running around in a restaurant not understanding when mommy says no, it's no. Because sometimes you can just give them that look and they'll know, okay, mommy's serious now, I have to sit, right? And you don't use good or bad. That's another thing. You don't tell a child, oh, you're a bad girl, you're being a bad girl, or you're being a bad boy. No, not nice. Okay, no, not nice. And you don't say consequence. You say, okay, no, if you hit your sister, no TV, or, you know, if you hit your sister, no toy, but you use, you know, however your child develops, you use their language. Consequences will come when they're a little bit older, you know, and they understand consequences. Or if you use it often enough, they'll probably know, okay, consequence is a word I don't want to hear when mommy says it. But you start disciplining them as soon as they understand the word no. All right. All right. Well, that's it for me. Thank you all for listening. Thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much. It was very informative and more than I expected. I'm grateful. Thank you.
Yay, that's a good thing to hear. Thank you. Simone? Back to you, Simone.
Thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, everyone, for joining us. And thank you, Dr. Phillips, for your wisdom. And yes, my greatest takeaway from this is not ignoring my so-called good child. Paying attention on the ones that usually misbehave. So grateful for that